my name is Aliana, and this is Kevin. We're
G'day.
from Taupo Library, and we were so excited for the chance to apply to this Books Alive event, and very stoked when we managed to be picked. Our wonderful author today is also a Taupo local. Her name is Tina Shaw, and the book that was part of the Children's Book Awards is Ursa, her sort of alternate history, post-apocalyptic sort of vibing young adult novel. So Tina, we're so excited to have the chance to speak to you today. It's just a real pleasure. We've got some great questions here today. Is there anything you'd like to say to begin with?
I'm very happy to be here. I'm thrilled that Ursa is a finalist in the Children's Book Awards. And let's have some questions.
Perfect. So Kevin is first up here.
Yeah, fantastic. So you're a real treasure to the town. It's a real delight. So we've got to ask, what is your favourite place to write in? Do you have a special environment that you like when you're doing your writing?
I really just have my office where I'm talking to you today from my office, and we actually live outside of Taupo, so in quite a quiet area near the Waikato River. So, when I need a break from my computer, I can just walk down the road and walk across the road and go and sit by the river, or in summer we swim in it. So, yeah, it's really nice.
Wonderful.
Nice. And what's sort of like your daily routine? How many hours do you write a day, for example?
I'd probably spend about 3 hours specifically writing, and it depends too on what stage my project is at. So I might be writing new material, a new story, or I might be editing a previous draft. I also do a bunch of other stuff as well. So I tutor creative writing and I critique other people's manuscripts. So that's part of my day as well. And also we've got 2 really lively dogs, English pointers, so they need a lot of exercise. And that breaks my day up as well. Yeah.
Do you ever get tired when you're writing, or does writing energise you?
I think, writing is an energizing thing to do. You do get a little bit brain weary, I think, depending on how long you're doing it for at any given time. And, sometimes it is good to step away from the page and the computer, because it's amazing when you're away from the page how new ideas can come into your head, or if you've got a story problem, it can get solved by taking a walk, walking my dog or whatever. So going for a swim, yeah.
Awesome. So how much, you mentioned the research that you do, how much research would you typically put into a book?
It really depends on the book. I'm writing manuscript at the moment, which has got a historical element to do with whaling. So that's going to need quite a lot of research, because I know very little about whaling, and it's a subject that I feel quite squeamish about as well. So I need to tackle that. With Ursa, that had a different kind of research, I guess, because so much of it was based on Berlin, where I had lived. So that's a different case again. Yeah, each book is slightly different.
That's incredible. So how does writing a standalone book differ from writing a series for you?
A series is, I think of a series as being when you finish one book and you have loose ends, or you have characters who just want to keep going. They won't go away. And so that's quite different to writing a standalone book, which I think has more of a sense of completion, and you sort of know at the end that this is it, you finished. With Ursa, for instance, I always wanted to write a follow-up book. So, and I've just recently started doing that, mainly because the character of Leho it just felt to me that there was more there and that he wanted to keep going as a character. And also the story situation, where they are in the city of Ursa. There's a lot of political material in there that I think still needs to be developed.
Yeah. Can I jump to this question? Because I did have a question further down that said, is there any possibility of a sequel to Ursa to show how they rebuild their society? Because that's the thing I needed at the end, those last 2 pages. And people were just reappearing. I was like, I need to know more about these people.
Yeah, and I had the same sort of feelings. So yes. And it's actually taken me ages to figure out the best story to tell next. And, I had a couple of false starts and not so much false starts, but, I've been making up outlines for the next book, and I just wasn't getting it right. And then the other day, just recently, I figured out where the story needs to go next. So I suspect there's going to be quite a bit more revolutionary kind of stuff happening, which, I touch on a little bit in Ursa, but I don't think it's the situation in the city is that easily resolved for the Cerels, who are my disenfranchised people, basically, living in the city.
Awesome, that's cool.
And how do you find the editing process? Like, is it heartbreaking or is it rewarding?
Do you know, when I first started writing, when I got my first editor, I suppose, when I was first published, it was quite hard because, as an author, you're so committed to your work, and it's hard to actually rethink certain things, which you're required to do often in the editorial process. But I quite enjoy it now, though it is also tricky. Like with Ursa, I had this really great editor, Nicola Santilli at Walker Books, who I worked with. And she put a couple of things out there that she wanted to see. And I had to really work quite hard in that process. It's really another whole process. You write and then you think, oh, yeah, I finished. But it's really just the beginning. The editorial process is the next step. And then, of course, the whole publication of a book is another step again. So, actually with Ursa, Nicola wanted me to, because originally it was written in third person, and Nicola wanted me to change the whole thing to first person to make it more immediate. So this is from Leho's point of view. And so basically that was a complete rewrite. Yeah, but I'm really happy with it. I'm really happy with the results. So, and I like to think it's made the story more immediate, and it's made the character of Leho come to life more.
Well,
Nice, that's cool.
what would you say overall would be the hardest part about writing?
Trying to get published. Putting your work out there and, sending it around. I mean, even at my stage, I've published, a lot of books. And even now, each manuscript, it's like I'm starting all over again. I have to send it out to whatever publisher I'm thinking of. For instance, when I finish the sequel to Ursa, I'll send it back to Walker Books, but there's no guarantee that they will take it. So that, to me, is the hardest part, and that can be heartbreaking. I've had a lot of rejection in my career, but it's also obviously the most rewarding. There's nothing like the feeling of holding your own book, when you get the first print copy or the first reader's copy. And that's just fabulous because you've really, you can see your achievement in the print.
Nice.
And growing up, do you have a memory or a moment where you can recall the power of stories, or it just gripped you and you knew this is what you wanted to do?
Yeah, well, I was a real bookworm when I was a girl, when I was a kid. And I used to write stories and send them into the, way back then, the Herald, New Zealand Herald had a children's page, and I used to send stories in there, and that was my first published work. And yeah, I vividly remember, beginning to write those stories and creating stories. So it was always a dream for me to be a writer ever since then, since I was a kid, because I loved reading so much. Yeah.
It's also, so for how much you enjoy writing, do you have a preferred, whether it's the proper like adult fiction or young adult fiction? Do you have a preferred genre, and can you explain the challenges between the two?
They're quite different. In one respect, writing for adults or writing for young adults, you're using the same techniques, you're using the same storytelling processes, but it's different in your focus. With young adult fiction, you've always got the young protagonist in mind, and that character or characters, they really have to drive the story. And yeah, otherwise it's quite similar, and you're still bringing a lot of craft to writing YA. So I'm always aware of that. I think too, the story has to be really, really good, whereas with adult fiction, you can get away with running on style in some respects. But I've always thought of YA as you've got to have a strong and original story.
Right.
Good. And with the book, how long did it take you to write?
I would have spent maybe 6 months writing it initially. And then once Nicola got hold of it at Walker Books, that was another 3 months, I think. Yeah, so...
Yeah, especially to completely rewrite. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you touched on this briefly earlier when you said that you lived in Berlin, and further through it starts to show how the segregation started between the two peoples. I personally found this quite reminiscent of sort of around Europe during the Second World War, and it sort of felt like a bit of an alternative history, especially some of your character names and your place names and the reference to airships so often. I could just see them. What was your particular inspiration for that? What made you want to write a story that felt this way?
I had a residency in Berlin. I was very fortunate to have an apartment right in the middle of the city. It was actually a very old one of the old original Jewish districts of Berlin. And while I was there, during my time there, I was also reading a lot around the subject of Nazi Germany, and I was so interested in what happened. I mean, we all know about the Holocaust story, but being there, and seeing the evidence of it and the reminders, daily reminders in the forms of memorials and all sorts of things like that in the district where I was living, it was just a very powerful experience for me. So I've drawn a lot on that for Ursa. The names, for instance, Ursa is Latin for bear, and, Berlin, their mascot, if you like, is the bear. So, I've sort of referenced different layers of the city inside my book. And even things like, the buildings with the old buildings with statues along the tops of them. So I bring that in, the city fathers and mothers originally shown there as statues. And the river, Leho and his friend, but they go fishing when they can. And so I'm using the River Spree in that respect. And also that sense of, I guess, the sense of the disparity between wealthy and very poor people. So the Travesta people who I invent for this novel, you know, they have everything basically. So I show Leho going into their district, and he gets to know a girl there, and just showing that disparity between the two peoples. But really, I was drawing very much on what happened during the early years of the Nazi regime and the Holocaust. But I wanted to take it outside of that to tell a different kind of story. That's why I have the airships, you know. So it's a little bit futuristic in that respect. And I've created another race of people who a trading culture, who fly the airships. But very much it's a story about oppression. So I was tapping into that the whole time. Yeah.
That other group of people that you were speaking of, are they going to maybe feature a little bit more in the next book?
Yeah. So I've called them the Phoenicians, after the very ancient Greek civilization, and they will be coming in more actually, because they're sort of in between the Travestas and the Cerels. So they've been holding themselves apart in many ways because they're traders, and they tend to trade with all sorts of different people. But I'm going to give them a moral dilemma in my next story where they will actually have to take sides. So, yeah. And then we've still got the Travestas in power, coming back into power, and the Cerels will still be fighting for their freedom.
Wow, cool. So a lot of your books that I've seen sort of have quite a lovely dark feel about them. They're often a little bit post-apocalyptic or alternative history. Where do these stories come from for you? Is there a passion of yours, or is it just a story you feel needs to be told?
Certainly with Ursa, I really felt it was a story that I know it's been told over and over, but for me personally, I still needed to explore that material. And yeah, my books quite often end up being a bit dark. I'm not too sure why that is, but I tend to tap into the darker side. And ideas can come from anywhere. Often, I must admit, my ideas can come from a location or a setting, such as Ursa in Berlin. I've just launched an adult novel called Ephemera, and that's very strongly based around the Waikato River. So, that's come from a specific setting. And then the story tends to come out of that. Years ago, actually, I wrote a short story for teenagers about a boy who is scared. He likes to go surfing, but he's also very scared of being in the water. And that came about from visiting Tawharanui Beach up north. So, it's being in a place like that and then feeling the story come from that.
That's incredible. Thank you.
Can you give us a bit of an insight, if I take you back? How hard is it to get published for that first time?
Yeah. It was hard. It was both hard and easy. My very first novel was called Birdie, and but before that, I'd written another novel, and I just couldn't find a publisher for that, so I gave it up, and then I started Birdie, and I found a publisher quite easily for it. Ended up being a small independent press. So that process was pretty good. But yeah, in other cases, it's difficult. Ursa is a good point in case. I sent that around all sorts of publishers. Nobody wanted it. And so I just put it in a drawer, put it away. And then one day I heard about this Tessa Duda Award for an unpublished manuscript, and I just thought, I've got nothing to lose. I sent it in, and it won that award, which led to the publishing contract, which was part of the prize. So, it can be so different. Sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's very difficult. I still have work that hasn't found a home, hasn't found a publisher. I've even published my own work. So The Children's Pond, which is a crime novel set in our area, Turangi, and set on the Tongariro River. Again, I couldn't find a publisher for it. So I published it myself. And it went on to be shortlisted for the Ngaio Marsh Awards. So, that was pretty satisfying. It's so much of it's about timing, and publishers have sort of ideas and lists of what the kinds of books they would like. And if your manuscript doesn't fit into that, well, you have to try somewhere else. And these days, we have a lot less publishers than when I first started publishing. So, I find a lot of people now are going down the self-pub route or publishing ebooks.
Right, yes. And do you have any advice for upcoming authors?
Just write. Write. And the best advice I could probably give is rewrite. Don't, be open to rewriting your work, because that's where the real gains will come in. And I see quite a lot of work from young people, actually, from schools, through the Society of Authors. They run this amazing program for young writers, a mentoring program, and I've mentored on that. And there's some brilliant young writers out there, really fantastic, with original ideas and So just believe in yourself and be prepared to draft and redraft your work. Yeah.
Great.
And what could libraries maybe do to offer support to these young budding authors or even writers that are looking to get published? Is there anything that we could do?
I think do you still have the tweens reading group or writing group at your library?
No, not currently, but we're looking to try and start something up like that again. Yeah. We've got a proposal that works for that.
Yeah. So something like that would be great, getting young people writing and reading, and, like a writing group, you can share your own work with like-minded people. Competitions are great to encourage writing, and of course, encouraging New Zealand books, putting, like you guys in our local library have amazing displays of books, so just carrying on doing that and maybe reaching out to kids in schools.
Awesome. Okay.
And do you meet often with other writers, like you're saying? Do you do that?
Not that much, but I'm in contact probably with quite a lot of writers, like online or via Facebook or
So your network of writers is mostly through like social medias and
it's mostly social media, because we don't have a lot of writers in the area where I live. So, but social media is great. It means you can be in contact with writers just by anywhere.
Awesome. Are there any sort of particular groups that you belong to, like a Facebook group, that you could recommend for young authors?
There's Kiwi Writes Write for Kids. There's also Kiwi Indie page. But there's heaps. Yeah. It's just a matter
of put yourself out there. Yeah.
Put yourself out there. Yeah. There's also too an online. It's a website, like a writing community. I think it's called Scrivener. So there's heaps of stuff out there.
Awesome.
And did you reward yourself at all for all your hard work? So you have treats lines or chapter?
I don't know. I tend to do something outside. So yeah, I'll go for a bike ride or or meet a friend for coffee, something like that. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. You had a question about maybe the book awards?
I've got to ask you, the book awards themselves, have you attended them in person?
No, I've never been. And sadly this year, because of COVID, it's all online. So I think that goes down on the 12th of August. Yeah, so, but I think they're having a big, like a Zoom award event. So that'll be fun.
Right.
Nice. That's awesome. Thank you so much for answering our questions. Did you have anything else you want to check with?
I must just add in that.
Okay.
What would distract you the most? What would be the most niggling thing that would distract you from your writing?
Oh, my dogs. We have one dog in particular who's really, really demanding, and she'll come and stand on my lap and, put her paws up on me. And she doesn't really understand that about computers and writing. Yeah, huge distraction.
Excellent.
And has technology changed at all since you began?
Yeah, it's got better and better. Yeah, so when I started writing, I was on a very basic computer. And now, it's fantastic what we've got. And of course, the whole social media thing, so you can keep up with what's happening in the rest of the world. And, and there's research, for instance. You just go into Google, once upon many, many years ago, I would have gone down to the library, pootled down to the library and looked up books. So it's all online now.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Awesome. So thank you so much for answering those questions again. We really appreciate it. It's been great to hear from your point of view, and especially about this fantastic book.
Thank you.
So would you like to start your reading now for us?
Sure. So I thought I'd read from the very beginning of the book. So we'll just go straight into it. They're burning books again in Herbert Square. Black marks tossing books onto the bonfire like it's a birthday party. Me and my friend Bit were crouched watching from a shadowy corner. Bit's at my shoulder like he always is, not wanting to put himself forwards, though his face is shiny with excitement, his orangey eyebrows gleaming. Me, I'm shivering with cold, being so thin, like a stoat, says Nana, though we can feel the heat on our faces from the fire, even from here. The library, with its fancy marble walkways and impressive steps, is glowing orange, like the stone itself is on fire. Even the stiff stone figures standing grim as ever along the top of the building, the city fathers and mothers, seem to flicker into life in the light of those high-reaching flames. The books are burning so fiercely. They already know that, from the books we burn in the stove when there's no wood to be had. Books burn good and fierce, but they burn too fast. Pretty soon, all you have is a pile of black ashes. It's kind of funny. Black marks burn books because they hate them. Cerels burn books to keep warm. Either way, they're banned now, the books. First, they closed the libraries. Now they're being cleared out. It's all by the directors say-so, his so-called edicts that come to us by way of roughly printed leaflets that the black marks stick up all around the place. I still remember going to the library when I was a wee sprat, the libraries that were once open to all peoples, Cerel's included, but they've been closed for years. Now that gracious stone building in front of us will be used for travesti activities, whatever that means, parties probably. Leho, is it time? But hisses in my ear. Soon, I hiss back at him. The longer I can put it off, the better. It's reckless, I know, and I don't want to think about what it'd do to Ma or the others if I get caught. But sometimes you just have to do a thing. They dump another cartload of books out the library doors, like tossing a body down the steps towards the fire. 3 black marks, who must be sweating in their heavy woolen tunics, scoop up armfuls and heft them into the flames. Sparks fly up into the dark. A senior black mark, the bear insignia pinned to his collar, is standing off to one side with folded arms, supervising. Miniature twin fires are reflected in his eye goggles. The sight makes me shiver, and I move backwards deeper into the shadows, my back pressing against Bit's knees. It's curfew, as usual, but we've come out anyway, like I do most nights. Not that I've been caught yet. The city's like a map I've drawn myself. Certainly the Cerel part of it. The ghettos where we live, I could run and slink through the city avoiding unwelcome attention. I know the alleyways and sewers and secret passageways through the city, the kinds of places the black marks don't use. I'm thin enough to squeeze through a bathroom window or through a stormwater grating or shimmy up spouting. Black marks call the city of Ursa their own, but it also belongs to me and my friends. Bit shuffles uneasily behind me. Oh, I don't like waiting so long. All right, I tell him, ready to go anyway. From the cloth bag over my shoulder, I pull out one of the devices, feeling the weight of it in my hand and pass it to Bit. Then I get one for myself. My hands are shaking. Not as brave as I let on, eh? On the count of 3, I whisper, hoping that my throw will be true. Bit nods, and his thin face is solemn. This is his first time out, and I'm not sure if he's loving or hating it. Bit's the pacifist in this relationship. Toss yours over to the left at the fire. Where are you throwing yours? Bit asks in a low voice. You'll see. I take a deep breath and risk standing up, my gaze fixed on the hated officer. Then I call softly out loud, 1, 2, 3. I lob the device at the man in the goggles, dimly aware of Bit's throw from beside me. We crouch down again immediately, wild animals watching their prey. The device smashes at the man's feet and explodes. He falls back with a shout. It's brilliant. Take that, you bastard, I mutter, though my voice trembles. An explosion comes from the fire. A great gout of flames leaps towards the stone figures on the building, and pandemonium is loosed. Shouts ring out, books clatter freely down the steps, men scatter, and I yell, run!
Wow.
That's so good. Thank you.
Oh, that's not my worst nightmare too.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you.
So much. It's been absolutely lovely.
It's been great talking. And thanks to LIANZA too for the interview opportunity.
Definitely. Yeah. Absolutely great.